Hey, thanks for watching this episode of The Word Made Fresh. It's a great one. Maybe I'm biased, but it is. Although we had a slight hiccup with how we typically record, we had to switch over to a different platform. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Zoom. You've heard of it. But it recorded us in speaker mode instead of gallery mode. If you know the difference, speaker mode is when it just shows the person talking. Gallery mode is when it shows all the people, even if they're not talking. I thought I was recording in gallery mode, but I wasn't. So this one's a little different, but enjoy. And I think next week, oh yeah, for sure, next week we'll be back with some fun because Adrienne and I are going to be in the same room. So we got a few weeks in a row that we're going to record where it's going to be us in person together. And then we'll get back to our platform and get the bumps worked. Okay, enough of that. Enjoy. Advent week 3. Here we are, and we are in the book of Ezra. Adrienne, you are back in the pulpit this week. Last Sunday, we had our fantastic children's pageant, which is always amazing. And now we are coming into Ezra. Do you have any framing thoughts about Ezra we should know? It's the whole Ezra-Nehemiah combo, coming out of exile, rebuilding the temple. Any sort of foundation we should hear before we read about the foundation of the temple? See what I did there?
No, that was very clever. I'm really thinking a lot about joy. I think in the ways that I thought about hope, and the depth of what it means to be joyful, which is different from happiness.
Mm.
And so that very last verse, I think, is what has got me chewing this notion that laughter and tears go together, and this notion that joy is something deeper and richer than happiness. And it has a flavor that's more complex than happiness. And I think as you think about the exile and the joy of the people coming back, but also the memory that the community carries about what they've lost, I think all gets mixed up together. And I think that's true for us in our joy as well. There's some
Yeah.
quote, I think, that says that we cannot know true joy if we haven't known true sorrow. And
Mm.
so what's that play? What's at play in creating joy?
I mean, that alone captures probably the world and most people's lives right now, but it also
Right.
very clearly captures the text, like you were saying, because this is the end of exile to some
Right.
extent. It begins, Ezra begins with, what is it? In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia. And basically, King Cyrus had this idea, oh, God told me to go send people back to build the temple in Jerusalem. And so now this is the story of people going back to rebuild in Jerusalem. And what we get in this text is them finishing the foundation. And at the end of that building of the foundation is where you get those moments of joy. The people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout. And then also says from the sound of the people's weeping. Oh, so there
Right.
was this combination of joy and weeping at this moment of the rebuilding of the temple, of what had been lost and also
Yes.
what is now being built.
Right. So they've been away for 70 years, and there's some people in the community, of course, who are just excited to be going back. Maybe mom or grandmom or great grandmom has told them about this place, and they are excited to be back. But some of those folks going back were children or young adults when they left. And so they're remembering who they've left behind, who maybe didn't live to see this. And so all those emotions get mixed up together, churned up together. And I think that is so appropriate for what Advent really is, what true religion really is. So that's our overarching theme. And so my sermon title is True Religion Weeps and Laughs, because
Mm.
there are the highest heights, right? We're excited to be welcoming this baby for Christmas. But as soon as the baby gets here, we're also aware that we're heading to the cross. So we've got these highs
Yeah.
and this low that's coming. That's life. I think that's faith. I think that's the world right now. It's our
Yeah.
family, and it's all embodied in this story of exile and return.
And if you think about Advent as this prolonged labor leading to the birth of
Mm.
Christ, I mean, you have a bit more firsthand experience with labor than I do. I have a couple good secondhand experiences, but there's a whole lot of weeping and laughing in that process itself.
Yes. Well, actually, that's what I'm told. I actually had a C-section,
Ah,
so
okay.
I don't know. I was numb. I didn't feel anything. Next thing I knew, we had a baby. So So I can't even help you with that metaphor. But we've all heard stories. And yes, there's weeping, there's tearing, there's pain. And then, of course, we're told, I think for some parents, there's a forgetting, and then
Yeah,
the falling in love and the joy of what has been wrought.
yeah,
And I think that is such a true and accurate picture of what it means to be human. I think it's true and accurate of what it means to be a follower of this God that we love, this Jesus that we claim. There's weeping and there's laughter, there's joy and pain. And that's what it means to be human, I think.
yeah. It is it. We say this every week right now, but it's so fascinating reading these texts and sitting in this tension, like you just brought us here, of joy and weeping, uh, in the moment that we're finding ourselves in the world.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
I mean, both just the microcosms of our lives at the holiday season, which brings up every emotion for people, whether it's, family and connectedness, or, loss and loneliness. Those are all brought together. And then just the headlines we constantly see of conflicts happening around the world. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
attention, as there should be, to the ongoing conflicts in
right.
Gaza. It just seems like that it's just such a, I don't know, it's such a, I just want to sit with it. I don't even know what, like, and therefore there's no moral of that story. It's just like a, wow, that is the human condition, and we're just constantly sitting in that.
We are constantly sitting in that. And I think the piece, a few weeks back when we shared the list of places that are declared to be places where genocides are happening. I mean, it's even heavier than we think when we talk
Yeah,
about Gaza and what's happening to the Palestinian people, and also the devastation that was wrought on the Jewish people October 7th. But there's Mali, there's Colombia, there's Chad, there's Sudan, mass graves in Sudan, people seeking refuge in Chad, a list that would just, and it did make me weep in the middle of the sermon, just to be thinking that humans are so intent on annihilating one another. And it's
yeah,
not just in one place, it's not just in 5 or even 10 places, it's many more places than that. Um, and I think as Americans, I think we're very um, insulated from, by choice or by design, to the weeping of the world. And I think we are not able to, in this moment, to be unaware. And it is one of the charges that I think gets leveled against us by other countries is, this war, this genocide has been going on for decades, or it's been going on for years, but it doesn't even make the news in our
yeah,
part of the world. And we're very invested, I think, in the joy side, or what we
hmm.
imagine the definition of joy in our country, but I also think in our churches. And I just appreciate the series of readings we've had this year, and the way you and I and the rest of the clergy team have been trying to invite people into what feels to me like a more human side of Advent. It is not the Hallmark card picture. Getting this baby born, as you suggested, involves weeping and laughing, and it's not easy. Riding the donkey to Bethlehem is not easy. And there are all these things going on in the world that involve empire, that involve weeping, that involve children under rubble, orphans, mass graves. While that was not Jesus's particular story, we're imagining this Palestinian Jew coming into a world then that is not very different from the world that we're in
Yeah,
now. And there's a heaviness to this time. There is a heaviness. It's also, and I'll just say this last thing, the time when a lot of people leave this world. There are a lot of deaths that happen at this
yeah,
time of years as things are turning from 2023 to 2024. We're also saying goodbye to people. And that is a
yeah,
reality that we also have to hold in this moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that should always be the goal, right? To become human and to embrace humanity, rather than, step aside from the emotions that are difficult or hard, or, oh, I don't want to face what actual realities people are facing. I just want to go back to my comfort and live in my little insulated bubble, at the well, the rest of the world is burning around me. I mean, there are people who want that.
Right.
They just want to build their spaceships and go to
Sure.
Mars and make life perfect. But
Right.
I think the job description of being human is, to embrace humanity, and that's exactly, like you said, what we're being
invited into this Advent season in particular and every week in general.
Yeah, and I would say also, Jim, I think the folks who are saying, I don't want to know what's going on in the world, if we're honest and if we take seriously what I think we're saying, which is that this, to some extent, is the human condition. It's not going on just around us, it's going on in us and with us as well, the people that we love, folks who are grieving the loss. We just had our Hope and Consolation service last week, and we know people who've had really hard years. We know people who've lost loved ones. And so while we may not be living in a particular place where a genocide is happening, there is loss and destruction and weeping as the counterbalance or the counterpoint to our joy. So we may want to say, not us, but it's all of
Yeah.
it's all of God's people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do
And
we
yet
think?
and
No,
yet
no.
in the
How do we
midst of all of that joy,
in the
how do
yeah,
we step into joy when the world is being the world? The world is worlding, and yet we are called to joy, hopefully not just one Sunday of the year, but this particular Sunday in Advent is the Sunday that is designated as joy.
it is. And it all gets mixed up. So even though we're focused on joy and other times of the year we may be focused on something a little more somber, it really is all mixed up in our human experience, but in these biblical stories as well. One of the things that I think I'm getting more and more clear about, and it's the gift of having children and youth in worship. So having the
Yeah.
pageant last week, I think that is an automatic invitation to us to walk into the tender places where God meets us, where baby Jesus meets us. When you've got children in worship, offering a pageant, reading scripture, praying prayers, administering communion, just their faces, their voices, I think invites us into our own
Yeah.
childlike and the tenderness of God. And I think that is a location of great joy, even in the midst of the devastation. And it's what we're seeing in parts of the world where these conflicts are happening, is that people are lifting up their children. And we
Yeah.
are encouraged, and I think left with some hope when we see what the children are doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I think we've said it many times, and I think there's the need to embrace and center and include the participation and involvement of children for so many reasons. But exactly what you just said, it's that sense of that innocence, that perspective they bring that just gives a renewed joy. I mean, I find that a dad of two kids, just this morning, I hear the chaos upstairs and I get a text saying, "Hey, can you come upstairs? Lauren wants to say something to you." And I walk up and they're eating lunch and he goes, "Dad, I love you so much. Have fun at work." And it's like, okay,
Right.
whatever I have on my shoulders of things I need to do, whatever headlines I've read, just that 3 seconds is all you need to be like, yeah, okay. There's
Yeah.
a glimpse of joy that will last a whole long time.
Absolutely. So it's always from them, I think, that invitation into the tenderness of God, the tenderness of who we are. And that compassion and tenderness for ourselves, I think, helps us to extend compassion
Yeah.
and tenderness to others. And I got your Christmas card. What a fabulous picture. All of you, like in the mud, in the puddle. That to me, that also is Advent, because there's the mud and there's the muddiness and there's
Yeah.
Chelsea with the mud on her dress and you guys, but enjoying that. It kind of captures beautifully, metaphorically, kind of what we're talking about. There is a joy in that messiness, and there is a joy in the messiness of this world
Yeah.
and what it means to be human.
And this third week of Advent is one that particularly invites us to notice that, to
Yes,
find and experience and express the joy, not to say there's no room for sorrow. I think that's what you said.
right,
This text does really well. We see both. They can't distinguish the sound of the people's joy versus their weeping because they're just all
right.
mixed together. But the point is that you have both. I think the
Yeah, both.
problem maybe comes if you only have one. If you just have joy and you're not aware of the weeping, or if you
Right.
just have weeping, but there's no space to have a moment of joy, that's when
That's it.
things get off balance. But
That's it.
humanity is really holding the two of them together.
That's it. That's it. You got it.
Perfect. See, that's why we do these conversations. Everyone watching thinks it's for them. It's really so I can figure this stuff out. So, all right, we're good. We're good.
No. You had it figured out. I think it's inviting people into that space. And it's interesting, you're like, we'll lift up certain people in our culture who I think suggest that it's possible to just have joy. Flying spacecrafts to the moon. I think what we do as clergy at our best is help to hold people in the complication of both, and that it's okay, and that we can get through it. We get through it in community. We get through it in helping one another to reframe and to understand that both are available to us, and that there are good things that can grow out of the muddy messiness of human life.
Okay, lastly, this third Sunday of Advent means we're lighting a different colored Advent candle. Can we, I did some research, so I'm kind of prepared, but do you want to share anything on pink and what this third Sunday's shift in color signifies?
I do
You're like,
not.
no, Jim, I have not prepared.
Not prepared at all. I just think pink is joyful, but go ahead and tell us what it really
Basically,
means.
yeah. I mean, I don't know all the details on the color change. I think it was that, but we refer to this as Gaudete Sunday,
Indeed.
which is a Latin word, and that Latin word Gaudete means rejoice. And it's the first word of the what is it? The Latin the introit that is typically sung in the Mass for the third Sunday of Advent. So that's where it gets its own shift and its own name. Well, that's interesting. Gaudete Sunday comes from a Latin word, which comes from a Latin introit, which I don't think we're singing at Riverside, but we'll go tell the choir to just bust it out. You never know. So all this to say, wear your pink. I'm planning on wearing pink pants underneath my robe on Sunday. So
that'll be awesome. I have a pink robe actually, and I usually wear it on Gaudete Sunday.
Good. Yours will be on the outside, mine will be on the inside. So however you're going to wear your pink, this is a good Sunday to do it.
Absolutely.
Whatever brings you joy really is what you should wear. That's a good note for this Sunday in particular.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this Sunday, as always, will be another great one. This whole season of Advent has been a real just a journey and a gift, I think, like we've been saying in so many ways. And this marks the final Hebrew scripture in the narrative lectionary. We move into Luke on Christmas Eve on Advent 4.
Okay.
So it's a whole new shift coming up. So get ready for a new half of the Bible and see where it takes us from there.
Oh, and that's one last thing I should say about joy. This Sunday, we also have our candlelight service. So at 4:00, if you're in New York and you can get to Riverside, there is a ticket price. It's going to be an incredibly joyful celebration, carol concert with all of our choirs, and you can also join online. I think you will really join it. It's quite a spectacular presentation.
We'll have all the info for that down below. You can find it on the church website right on the front. So head over, join us for the third Sunday of Advent. Stick around for candlelight at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then 7 days later, we're moments away from this baby being born. So let's get the swaddling clothes ready and whatever else we need and get ourselves ready for Christmas that is coming very, very soon. And we will talk more about all that on another episode of The Word Made Fresh. We'll see you all next time.